You want to see me mix some kick and bass? I'm Alex from ElektronSound.com, and let's get to it. Okay, so when I'm mixing kick and bass, I start out with everything in Midi, and it's a good thing to understand what key your song is in, because that'll help everything, especially when you're doing, like I'm about to do, mix a kick and bass in an EDM track. So what I'm going to do is just get all my Midi laid out real quick, just unmixed. So this is extremely important when you're mixing kick and bass in an EDM track. You want your kick to be the same exact frequency as your bass line. If your bass line is going to be that same key the whole time. If your bass line is going to be a different key, like switching around keys to be more melodic, it's still easiest to have your kick in the key of your song. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm just using my ears doing that. So this, in other words, to put it as simple as possible, this kick and bass are in the same exact key. Like, that means if you're pressing a piano key to match the note of the bass line and the kick, it would be the same piano key for both of them. So let's go. Just check it real quick. Alright. And that'll make our job way easier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce it out so I can show you a little bit better what I'm going to do. I'm going to sidechain these. Mind you, this is a house song that I've been working on in my YouTube videos. It sounds like this. Okay, so I need a nice killer bass line and a nice killer kick. So let's get this kick bounced out. Oops, I have my limiter up a little too high. I don't want that to be happening. The reason for my limiter there is just for the video recording purposes. So let's bounce this. And so we have that. And now we're going to bounce this bass, and this will just make everything so easy for us. And this is how I mix kick and bass. So right now it's confusing because my bass line is clearly bigger than my kick, but the reason for that is just the way I bounced them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make them 1 bar in size perfectly, just to get everything nice and organized. Now, if your song's not in 128 BPMs, you may want to just ignore this step. So what I'm going to do is just make this perfectly that size. But you can ignore that, like I said, if you're in a different BPM. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the fade tool here, and I'm going to get rid of those pops in the back. This will also act like an attack for a sidechain. Okay, so now what I want to do is just check it. Okay, so there's a little bit of a fuzzy pop there that I just want to get rid of. When you're mixing kick and bass, it's good to just rid it of the pops while you're there. Alright, well, it's doable now. So now I'm going to mix the kick and bass. When you play it together, it doesn't make sense because the kick hits when the bass line is playing, and the bass line just swallows the kick up, obviously, like you hear. So what we have to do is we got to make room for this kick. So I'm going to use the fade tool to do that. And this is kind of like a well, it is a sidechain. So when this kick hits, I'm going to move away this bass line manually. I'm going to try to do it with my ears as best as I can. I'm going to turn this up real quick just to get a hear for where the bass line comes back into play. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress the kick because I want as much kick to come through as possible, and then I can chop off some of this tail that I don't need. So what I'm going to do is mute that real quick and just listen to this kick, because I don't have to do much of this kick because it's already compressed, but there's always that little bit that I can do. And what I like to do is just round out the back as much as possible, get as much volume out the back as I could. Right there. And you can see it's kind of like a brick wall, the compression there. It's just going to help out just a little bit. And so next I'm just going to take my fade tool and kind of make this as short as I can make it without destroying it. You see that tail it's kind of worthless. The value you get out of this little tail here is slim. So now I'm getting a little bit of a pop. So now I'm just going to help it out a little bit. Okay, so let's put these together. It actually sounds pretty good. Let's see if we can push this a little more. Okay, so let's go into our EQ for the kick. And let's do our nice little 30 Hz cut. And boost the lows a little bit. Oops, 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 oops. Alright, we're starting to peak here. It's a pain in the ass doing this sometimes with a video playing. So I have to. Oops. Okay. So now I have them mixed with my ears. So now what I could do is come into something visual and see where I'm at visually. So I'm going to zero this out real quick. And I can see now I have a little bit of space in between the volume and the kick, the volume of the bass and the kick. So let's just save this real quick and come back in here. Before I adjust any volumes, I did want to change this. If we look at the transient of the kick, I want that shining through with nothing affecting that. So what I'm going to do is just bring that back a little bit. So when the transient of the kick hits, it completely shines through. So I'm going to copy this, give myself a nice 4-bar measure, or a 4-bar sequence, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure this is all perfect, and then there we go. So now I can play it. So my end goal is I want everything even. I want especially the sub bass. I want the sub bass as even as possible. So now I can bounce this out and I can virtually use them together and just have my sidechainer on a different key, so, or on a different track, like a ghost sidechain. So the kick is a little bit overpowering of the bass line, so I'm going to try to get the bass line up a little bit. So let's take a look at this real quick. So that may or may not be it. This is something I'm tweaking the entire time. So I'm going to use this compressor to compress them just a bit. And when I'm compressing these, I like to use a slow release for that little bit of side chain, like, how do you put it? Like, kind of like a fail. So when the kick hits, when the side chain's making up the gain of the bass, I like to use the compressor to help that. You don't need to totally murder it, but because our kick is already being compressed, so I don't want to recompress the kick and make it just sound like a bad kick. So now I can go ahead with my export kick and bass too, because I already did this before I made the video. So let's go and open up a new layer and import our kick and bass 2. So that's actually pretty nice. You want your kick a little bit louder than the bass line, but of course you can use your ears. Use your ears when you're doing this. If it looks like that and it sounds bad, like the sub bass is overpowering the kick or something, like your sub bass line is overpowering the kick, if it sounds like that, it's probably overpowering the kick. So you might want to just reconsider mixing those things. So this is the one I did earlier. This one's probably a little more dynamic. See, this one, the new one, has a bit more of a evenness to it. But let's go ahead and look at our frequencies. So the transient will be messy up here, but that's normal. And we can see where the kick ends and the sub bass gets started, and there's no messiness there. If you see like a messiness there, especially in Logic, where Logic's waveforms are a little bit weaker than other DAW's waveforms, then you really have to go back in there and clean it up. But it looks pretty clean. It sounds clean, especially as direct as I'm hearing it in my headphones. So that's probably a good mix right there, and I would take that and build a song over that. So that is how I like to do my kicks and basses. Just put them together, mix them together, separate them. It's not necessarily mixing kicks and basses, it's like separating them and then mixing them. So you got a couple steps. So there you go, guys. Until next time, my name is Alex Rome, and I hope you enjoyed the video.